Lately, English teachers have been concerned about students' participation in class. A lot of questions on how to encourage students to be more active in class and also how to make active students not dominate the class. I'm Ruth and you are watching FLA Edu Talks. Today, we'll hear interesting discussion about the issue and how to overcome the problems about the students' participation from teachers or experts experienced in the field. To better understand these events, we'll talk with Dr. Winda Anastasia as an expert in language education, as well as Miss Eunice, who is an educational psychologist. And finally, for a perspective from an English teacher, we'll also have Miss Regina on our show. We are going to start with our discussion about students' attitude in class. Dr. Winda, could you share about your experience with overactive students and why the rest of students like to be passive in class?
Yes, thank you for the introduction. While only one or students are active, one of the reasons that the other students prefer to stay passive is low motivation. When the students are unmotivated, students will be off task. What does this mean? Students prefer to sit in silence, not paying attention, or they might play with their pencil, or in the case of online classes, they might even leave their computer and take a nap. When this happens, the teacher should give opportunities or even force the students to talk. Of course, while doing this, the teacher should not be too harsh. So this is why positive reinforcement is very important. And I know that Miss Eunice is a very positive person. Perhaps you can give us a few tips on how to encourage students to be active in classes.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rinda, for the opportunity. So, sure, I agree with the statement that low motivation causes low participation. And when I was a student, I also experienced this kind of situation. One way to address this issue is already mentioned by Dr. Rinda is through positive reinforcement, which revert to rewards given to the students to increase the expected behavior, which in this case is active participation in class. So, positive reinforcement actually goes from the simplest things, such as appreciating a student's active participation. For instance, by saying good job or excellent and providing positive feedbacks. Some studies have revealed that feedback does raise students' enthusiasm during their learning process. And I understand that there are times when students make mistakes or the responses are not as expected. So, in this case, the teacher's response is crucial because some students may lose their motivation due to negative responses they receive from the teachers. Other than that, teachers may also provide additional points or activation points for students who are active in class. And they need to understand that um, when they get these additional points, it will impact their overall grades. So they know that, oh, when I am active in class, I will have something. I will gain rewards from the teachers. So it will encourage them. And to initiate this kind of reinforcement, teacher can introduce the system, the reward system in the course syllabi at the beginning of the lesson or at the beginning of a course, for instance. And then teachers should also remind the students about this kind of rewards, about the points. For instance, they can create a card in which the name are listed and also the activities of the students, like that. That's my tips.
That's a great insight, Miss Eunice. I do agree that rewards can boost students' motivation, but sometimes Knowing what they can get is not enough when the students are not sure how they can achieve that, how they can fulfill the teacher's expectation. So I think another reason that students prefer to be passive is low proficiency and low confidence. For example, in an English class, the students do not want to speak English because they think their English is not good enough and they cannot say the same thing in English as fast and as easily as they do in their first language. And to make things even worse, when active students dominate the conversation, the rest of the students won't even bother to try and just happily let that student speak. So that's why it is important to inform the students that in the class, everyone, everyone is heard, regardless of the accuracy of their grammar or ideas. And personally, I think it is also okay. It is even okay to allow limited use of the first language. So using the first language for a few words or even sentences might help the students to be more confident and help them to communicate their ideas better. And when dealing with lack of confidence, silence or thinking time might help. So the conversation doesn't always have to keep going and going. We can allow the students to think. We can give a few minutes after asking a question. So the students have time to think and organize their thoughts before speaking. This will really help to reduce students' anxiety, especially for the less active ones.
All right, it is a good point from Dr. Winda and Miss Eunice. By giving rewards, students can be more motivated, and we should make sure that every word matters in AFL class. So the student will be more comfortable to speak and participate in class. Now, I have a common case that usually happens in EFL class. How can games make the students be more active in class? Does it work to make passive students have more participation in class?
So a boring lesson might be the cause of passive students. So we can also use games to make the lesson more interesting to the students. Who says games are only for children? For more mature students, we can still create an activity that has a sense of competitiveness without giving the label games. When I was in high school, when our English teacher said that we were going to play a game, the whole class are excited. 12th grade students are still children after all. And in that game, our team scored the highest before because I was the one answering all of the questions to the point that the teacher has to ban me from answering. So was I offended? No, of course not. The teacher said she explained that I need to give opportunities to the other students as well. And I agreed with her. My point is, even in an interesting activity, such as games, where everyone is excited, one student can still dominate. And when this happens, the teacher can address the problem, uh, not just in this kind of situation, but in any kind of situation. When a student is dominating, the teacher can address the problem by interrupting, like saying, "Thank you for your ideas. I get that." Or maybe talking to the dominating student and giving them some understanding, like your friends also need some opportunities to talk and things like that.
All right, now let's see Miss Regina's perspective about the reason why students are passive in class, and also maybe you could share your experience when teaching English. Is there any tips to make all the students actively participate in the classroom?
Okay, so thank you, Ms. Ruth, for the chance that given to me. It's an honor to be here with Dr. Winda and Miss Eunice. And yeah, I will share what I have experienced in the class. So in my perspective, the reason why students are passive in the class is because some students feel afraid to give some response to the teacher, whether to ask question or answer some questions given by the teacher. It may be because the students don't have enough motivation, as Dr. Winda have said earlier, and then some students may not be confident because their friends' responses, like if they become active in responding to the teacher's question, they are afraid if their friends talk about them or do not agree with their statement. From another perspective, we can see that the reason why some students may become very active in a class is because they need more attention from the class. Usually, students who need more attention in the class come from students who are not really close with their family, especially their parents. That's why they may don't have someone to talk to, or they don't get enough attention from their parents, and that's why they try to make all people in the class pay attention to them.
That's an interesting point, Miss Regina. And when it comes to low confidence, which is a huge problem for many students, it causes anxiety. Low confidence causes anxiety. And to solve anxiety, which usually happens in a large class, that the students might fear being heard by so many people, small group discussion can help, because small group discussion allows for student to student communication. It will give more students time to speak than if the whole class does something together. And in an online class, this can be done by doing breakout rooms. It is challenging though, because it is harder to monitor online breakout rooms compared to small groups in regular classes. But this is a topic to be discussed in another talk. However, even in small groups, the same problem can occur, where one student or two students keep dominating the discussion. And in this case, the teacher can appoint specific roles to each student in the groups. For example, a moderator, a timekeeper, and a reporter.
Right, thank you, Miss Winda, for the explanation. So, Miss Regina, could you share your comments about giving some time for the students to have a small discussion into a breakout room? Do you think this is possible to make students more active?
Okay, so when small groups or breakout rooms are not possible for the students, we as a teacher need to be wise in facing this case. Teacher can ask a student directly one by one to answer some questions. Then teacher can also ask students to answer some questions, then wait for other students to share their answers too. Teachers should not only take the fastest answer from the students to make other students more comfortable. Then they might discuss their answer together. The teacher can also ask students to take a note first if there are any questions. Then answer those questions at the end of the lesson. Or the teacher might also give students a chance to message the teacher privately outside the lesson time for asking some questions. Besides that, teacher can also give a private consultation to the students and talk in private with the students one by one. Here, the teacher needs to make sure that all students are at the same level. If there are any students who are late or maybe faster than the other friends, the teacher can give extra exercises for them until they are reached in the same levels.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Regina. Now that we have discussed the reasons and solutions for the problem of overactive students, are there any exceptions or consideration when making the decision in facing this kind of situation?
Okay, so first of all, the teacher has to analyze whether the situation is a single occurrence or an ongoing situation. We're still talking about the overactive student. Maybe the particular topic is so interesting to this student that they could not stop talking because they're too excited. In this case, the teacher does not need to waste their time and energy because it is only temporary. And teachers should also know that if large numbers of students, if the majority of the students are not willing to engage with the lesson, the problem may not be the overactive student, but could be the lesson itself. The task might be too boring or too difficult for the rest of the class. And in this case, the teacher should not criticize the overactive student and instead take notes and improve the next lessons, make the next lessons more interesting and easier.
Yeah, as a psychologist, I agree with Dr. Winda's points that maybe the problems is not with the students, but with the task itself. So task difficulty influences students' self-efficacy, the feeling whether they can or not complete the task. So it determines the level of amount of information learned. And as the higher difficulty level usually corresponds with the use of more highly developed skills and also better understanding of the material. So yes, in spite of talking all of over the students, the teachers may also review and analyze whether the lesson is correct or not, whether it is at the students' capabilities or not. And then after that, oftentimes the most important choices teachers make for these students is deciding a level at which they should be taught, like that. And if students know that there is an expectation of successfully answering a question, for instance, they will be more willing to participate. That's my point.
All right, good point from Dr. Winda and Miss Eunice. Now I want to hear another perspective from Miss Regina on considerations when making the decisions in facing overactive students.
In my opinion, the consideration is about of these reasons, and the solutions are that the teacher needs to spend more time outside the classroom schedule, and it may hinder the lesson if the teacher answers students' question at the end of the class, because the teacher needs to go back to the previous materials.
All right, how about Miss Eunice? Do you have another perspective or answer about this problem?
All right, yes, so another perspective or consideration. Mainly, teachers should be clear and transparent in giving, for instance, rewards or reinforcement or points. So students need to know what kinds of behavior is expected in the classroom. For example, is answering yes, ma'am, is included as active participation? So teachers need to be clear in this area to help the students give the desired output. For instance, okay, I want you to give comment or I want you to give your opinion. And that is what we call as active participation, not just saying, yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am. All right, just like that. And then next, teachers should also consider the timing and amount of reward. At the beginning, students will receive, for instance, 2 points if they comment on their friend's work or when they answer question. However, being stuck in this process means students will likely produce only this kind of outputs Okay, I only say yes and I only comment on my friend's work and I already get 2 points. So I will continue to produce this kind of output. So this is what the teachers need to consider about the reward system in class. So later, teachers may also introduce something more than that. And then we also need to consider what kind of reward is appropriate with the students. Candies and stickers will work with primary school students, but it will not work with middle school students. That's my consideration for the teachers.
All right, it seems we have reached the end of our discussion today. Today we have been talking about students' attitude in class. First, we have found some reason why students are likely to be passive in class. There are some points that are explained by the expert. First, because students have less motivation. Second, students have less proficiency and motivation. And lastly, students are afraid to give responses in class. In today's discussion, we also found some tips to make students more active in the classroom. First tip is the teacher can give some time for students to answer the question. Second, initiating a positive reinforcement. And lastly, try to give more opportunities for passive students to share their opinion or answer. Also, we have some fresh ideas for English teachers to have game to prepare students before they follow the lessons. So if the students are ready to follow the lesson, they will be involved and be active in class. And give them space to have discussion with their classmates in a breakout room. They will feel more comfortable if they share with their classmates. I think this is the end of our discussion today. Thank you for the expert who joined our talk show today, Dr. Winda, Miss Eunice, and Miss Regina, for your willingness to share and come to our talk show. I hope that today's discussion can be a new insight for all teachers and improve the education system to create more active and fun environment for learning English. I'm Ruth and thank you for watching and see you on the next Edu Talks. Bye.